You are officially in the loop. Welcome to In the Loop podcast. I am your host, Jordan Jo Hollabaugh, professional rodeo athlete, entrepreneur, and a full-time cowgirl. I'm married to my best friend, and we are blessed to get to do what we love every day, and that is travel around the world and rodeo. My goal on this podcast is to promote the Western industry and specifically the sport of breakaway roping. On In the Loop, we bring you behind-the-scenes stories of what real life looks like every day from cowgirls, cowboys, industry leaders, producers, trailblazers, and all of the like, sharing stories of the Western culture and the lifestyle that they live daily. You are now officially in the loop. Let's get to it. Okay, guys, today I am here with Shane and Taylor Hanchey. Thank you guys for coming to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
So we are all just kind of in lingo. Shane and Taylor, we just left Pendleton. Shane is the 2021 Pendleton Roundup tie-down roping champion. It was the first time, I think, for me. I don't know I think it was the first time for Taylor too to run down the hill. We didn't have much luck, but it was a fun rodeo to be at. So, Shane, talk a little bit about Pendleton, and I know you said you've had good success at that rodeo, and it's one of your favorites. Talk a little bit about it and what you like about it.
Yeah, so for me, Jordan, it's so unique, obviously in the setup and what the outside, rodeo world can see, us coming off the hill, the calves coming down, then we get to the football field and the grass but it's even more unique in the tie down because it's all, we get one calf for everybody, fresh calves, and it's all shoot run. So we don't know, like every other rodeo during the season or at the national finals, what we have ahead of time. We literally don't know until everybody can see them coming off the hill. So it just adds a little bit of that dimension to it, that a little bit more of the unknown. And I mean, I think I've said it, countless times, but I think one of the main reasons I have so much success at Pendleton is because of my horse. He handles the grass so easy and makes it feel like we're open on dirt. And so, I won that rodeo in 2017. I've won second in 2018, 2011. I've made the short round two other times. So I knew what I was getting into after the first round. And it's one of those ropings that you just kind of got to pace yourself and not try to do anything special, because with all the, extra things with the setup, it makes it difficult as it is. So if you just kind of stay in your lane and rope, you end up coming out on top at the end of the week.
Yeah. And that's something I think, one thing that's cool for us is we're all sort of rookies at this. So we've gotten to see all these new places and just like you said, adapting to all the different things at each rodeo. And that was one that had a lot of different variables. And I know your horse also won horse of the rodeo as well, right?
Yeah, he did.
One of the cool things I think that is really neat about that horse, Cy is his name. Taylor rode him as well as Cheyenne Guillory rode him, and then Shane rode him. So he's pretty versatile in the breakaway and the tie down. And, he was consistent throughout the rodeo. And I think that's something that's pretty neat, that your horse can be consistent when there's a chute or a lane or anything like that, grass, dirt. That's pretty neat to say that you get to ride an animal athlete like that.
Yeah, that's, when we won Pendleton in 17, he did win the horse of the rodeo. And I didn't even know until my interview that he had won it. And, just like you said, with Cheyenne and Taylor riding him, and me and Logan riding him, and Logan winning, I think third in the short round, fourth in the average on him as well. I think it just solidified, that award for him. Just, like you said, four different people rode him on the grass. And yesterday it rained all day and wasn't, all ideal conditions for the grass. And he, like you said, he handled it like a champ. I'm pretty proud of him. It's pretty cool story he's got.
Yeah, for sure. So Taylor, I want to ask you, I know both first time for us to rope there. what advice did Shane give you, and what was your tactics on your strategy at Pendleton coming down the hill? I know you came out of the head box. We got the choice to come out of the head or heeling box. So tell me a little bit about your strategy going into it and what you thought.
Well, Shane and I had talked about it a little bit beforehand, and he always comes in the second round from the head box because the calves aren't fresh anymore, and he just thinks it's a better setup as far as the calves go. And so we just decided even before it started that I would come from the head box, and I got to practice out of the head box a little bit beforehand too, just so I was a little bit more comfortable with coming from that side, because I never have. And I actually had a rerun, and my calf went left with the girl that ran her before me. So I thought, well, shoot, I'll just kind of hit her right when she comes across me. So I thought it was a good plan, but it didn't work out. She ended up going right, and I ended up missing. But Shane said I overthought it a little too much, which is probably true, because I have a tendency to do that. But I mean, we did have a plan, and it just didn't quite go according to plan.
Yeah, so that's funny when you say, not that it didn't go according to plan, but you say you overthought it. And that's one thing, throughout this year, Shane has been at most of the breakaway rodeos that he could be at, that you guys are at the same time. It's worked. And I think that he's seen, we all maybe overthink it just a tad as women. But tell me, go into that a little bit more. Like, what is your guys's your talks like? What does he tell you, all year long? What's your mindset been like? Tell us a little bit about, what goes on behind the box, and what he's been able to tell you and help you with his experience to help you this year.
I think probably the biggest thing that has changed from the beginning of the year till now is the fact that he realizes and admits that you cannot miss the barrier, not even a few inches. And that he says you might as well break the barrier. Like, he'd rather me break the barrier than be late, because I mean, being late takes you out of the rope, and just like breaking the barrier does. So
yeah,
that's probably the biggest change, is hasn't backed me off the barrier as much. And then really he kind of tries to make me mad because I wrote better mad. So that's
well, that shouldn't be hard. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I don't know. It kind of just depends on the setup and where I'm at mentally beforehand.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I think it's good that you touched on. Raymond's always telling me, watch the calf rope and watch their start. And that's one thing I've told him this year too. Like, most calf ropers, they are pretty, I'm not going to say safe on the barrier. Some of them knock it out, but they have a little bit extra time right there, to where we don't. Like, we have no variables to make up anything on the ground or anything like that. Raymond says we should make it a double mugging or calf touching or something, but I would just soon not do that. But it is like, we don't have any room for error. Like, if we don't hit the barrier and get that shot right there, it's so stinking tough. Like you said, you either break the barrier or you might as well be in no time if you're late. And so that's one thing I've learned too, is the barrier is such a vital role in what we do.
For sure. It's something that, after not having a while, that I did with, just because I hadn't done it in a while, and it took me a little while to get better at it. I'm not great at it still, but I've definitely gotten better at it for sure. But it was a struggle. And then also I kind of was riding two different horses, and it just takes me a little bit of time. I wish it wouldn't, but it does take me a little time to adjust to what horse I'm on and my start. So it's something I'm working on.
Yeah. And I think that that's huge. I've seen you a lot of places this year, like you said, on two different horses. And something that I think has been a learning curve for all of us is the timing with each horse is not the same. We all hope to get on and I think do our best as a rider and get the best out of the horse, but every horse is so much different. And so being able to just adjust like that is a heck of an accomplishment, to even be able to ride different horses and compete at that standard and that level of expertise. And then, win on different horses too. And that's been something I think is a learning curve for everybody, how we've had to travel and go to different places and have different rigs and stuff. It's definitely been a learning curve for me and something I'm working on too. So I think that's been big.
Yeah, that's something that Shane's really good at, is just getting on something and being able to win. And maybe I'll be like that one day, but I've rode all of Shane's horses, and still just getting on and going to them right off the bat is not the easiest thing for me. So I've tried to be smart about it all year long. I haven't rode anybody's horse but Shane's, really, because everything that I've rode this year has been his, but it's all something that I've rode before, and
right.
I'm not to the point where I think I can just crawl on and expect to win at this level. It's like we said, you can't miss a barrier. You got to be able to be on the barrier and then use your rope too. And I just think it's advantageous to be on a horse that you've rode before.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. So Shane, I want to go back and ask you a little bit. I mean, you've been front and center all year. You've been at most of the rodeos. What's some of the takeaways that you've seen, as ropers behind the chutes and the competition and everything? What's been your perspective on breakaway roping this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've, like you said, I've kind of been at all the big slacks, and I've watched all the big rodeos, and it's crazy to me. Two things stick out to me is one, of course, how tough it is. I mean, going by tenths, you could go from 2-3 to 2-6 could be first through 10th, with all the splits. So it's crazy how tough it is. And then probably the other thing that sticks out to me is when, you get to the outdoor arenas and you got a 2-under barrier, and it's crazy to me how many girls don't understand the measurements on the box with the barrier, and when people say it's 2-under, and they nod and ride like we're at Northside, or like we're at the Thomas and Mack. So it's just a different deal, because I think that most of the breakaways, and I haven't been a huge amateur rodeo guy. I did growing up at the LRAs in Louisiana, and the last couple of years Taylor has talked me into going to the CPRAs and UPRAs, and I've made their finals. And for the most part, them rodeos are kind of the same kind of nod and ride setup, that you see day in and day out. And when you get out here, you've got a rule book that you got to go by, and that rule book in the PRCA says, any outdoor arena is a standard 2-foot under with the approval of the event director, and any indoor arena is 3-under with the approval of the event director. So any outdoor arena 2-under, and I go to Reno and you see all the broke barriers. Just crazy that it's just such a different ball game from how we go about making our living. And then now all of a sudden y'all are in this same same arena, same setup as us, and it's just totally different than the Texas amateurs. So I think that's something I think eventually it's going to be not a big deal. I think when people show up to Caldwell at 2-under next year, because y'all have been there and done that, y'all are more familiar with it. I swear I think that's the reason I made the NFR the second year that I rodeoed, was because my rookie year, I'd went to all these places and experienced it. And then when I got back there, I knew kind of what the setup was like, kind of how the calves are going to be. And I could mentally prepare for that going to the rodeo, driving to that rodeo. And then, like you said, for y'all, it's just kind of been of a whirlwind. Y'all show up and, okay, yeah, you get in the box and nod, and not really knowing what the setup's like, what it's normally like. And then you throw that other variable, and there ain't no telling what kind of calves are going to be open. So it's all been a learning process for me. I'm the director for the calf roping, so I'm totally on board with breakaway roping if it can incentivize my contractors to bring better tie-down calves and let y'all rope better breakaway calves. I'm all about it. So I've definitely watched and paid attention, and I've got some mental notes jotted down for sure.
Mental notes for us next year. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Well, I think, okay, I'll just use myself. Like,
I've been in Texas, and just like you said, a lot of these setups are 4 under, and then, yeah, we have went to jackpots and whatnot, and they are a little bit further out there, and you have to score, but then you also get to rope 3 or 4, and it kind of offsets where you're not having to just blast the barrier and blast the calf. And so I'll just use myself, I had learned a lot this year on sitting there and seeing it, and then blasting them, and that's one thing that, man, these girls have come out there, and it doesn't matter if it's still 2 under, like, 2-3, 2-2, 2. I mean, they're not just, it's not just go catch them. And so that was a learning curve for me, because I was so used to just right behind them, and then if I'd sit there and try to see, then I was late. And so kind of figuring out the scoring, like you said, every setup is different. A lot of the outdoor arenas are 2 under, but it's still the boxes and then shoots. And so learning how to read those things, I'm completely agree with you. Next year, I think, and the years to come, will be definitely a game changer. But I don't know that I've asked a million questions to a million different people. I don't think you can tell somebody how to do it. Like, I think you just have to do it. You have to live it and do it and learn that way.
For sure. 100% agree. And, that's, you proved a good point. I mean, with it being in a tricky setup, well, guess what? There's still 130 ropers entered. There's going to be 10 of them that's going to get the barrier and going to have a calf weight on them. And like you said, 2-2 or 2-3. And then that's just how it's so different than our event. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I nail the barrier every time, but I know that if I am 2 to 3, 4 inches off of it, I have enough confidence in my groundwork that I can make up some time. And you girls can't do that. It's kind of unfortunate. Y'all got to either know how to reach and bomb if y'all miss the barrier, or you're not going to win nothing if you don't. So to me, that's why me and Taylor, we really focus on scoring when we're at the house, just because I want her to be able to get the barrier and take her first throw, just because she's a lot like me. I don't consider myself a reacher. I feel like if I have to reach, I can pull one out of the hat maybe, but I try not to. And Taylor's the same way. She needs to run close, needs to run to her spot to rope the neck. So it's challenging for sure. It's not easy like everybody thinks it is.
No, that's for certain. And the neatest part about it that I've seen this year is, just like you were saying, her style and my style, stuff like that. Everybody has such a different style, but they figured out a way to win. So there's not necessarily just one certain, you have to do this X, Y, and Z. That's been kind of cool to see the girls adapt that way and figure out all sorts of different ways to win.
Honestly, it's crazy when I watch. I'm just like, and I've gone with Cheyenne a little bit here lately, and she has such a big, pretty open swing. And Shane's like, "Man, I wish your swing would be like that." And I'm like, I just don't think it's
You're
ever
like,
gonna be that
man,
way.
I wish you would shut up. No.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, and there for a while, I was like trying really hard, and I'm just like, I think we're too late in the game to change this now.
Yeah.
But it really is, it's cool to me to see there's so many different styles, and it works, and really it works. Nobody wins all the time, so to see the different styles, and you're going to see them work sometimes, and you're going to see them not work other times, and it's just figuring out what works for you and making the best of the run that you're given.
Yeah, I agree completely. Well, a background a little bit. You talked about being the director. I know we've had a lot of in-depth conversations, all of us this year, on things, we can do, and as breakaway ropers, not just in the arena, but outside of the arena. Give us a little bit about your perspective being a director and taking that role, and what it means as a contestant, and what maybe, if it's opened your eyes to certain things that maybe we don't see, and where we all need to kind of learn from moving forward.
Yeah, I took over in April as the event director, the event rep for the PRCA and the Tie Down Open, and it's a 2-year term. And the biggest thing was I wanted somebody. Our last few directors, were good and decorated and this and that, but they weren't out there, you know, as I call it, in the trenches. They weren't rodeoing for a living. They were home, just literally just getting hearsay off of what calves were getting roped where and who brought them this place and why they weren't good that place. I wanted somebody that was going to be rodeoing full time that could take care of it. And really at the end of the day, there wasn't many people that we trusted, and they kind of just come back to me, and I kind of took it on. You know, I told them I'd do it as if we didn't have enough things going on with our lives. But I took it over in April, and I've learned so much about the contracting side, the you know, not even the subcontractors like you know, your Lano Mangles, Jeff Gates and Dan Mundorf, but the big contractors, you know, Stace Smith, Pete Carr, you know, just them guys, and really it's been a learning experience. I mean, I'd be the first to tell you I haven't necessarily made friends with a lot of people, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my job, and I think my job as a director is to look out for the tie down ropers, and you know, in turn it's to look out for the breakaway ropers too, as far as, you know, the barriers, calves, and all that. And I just think that it's a big part, and I wanted somebody that was going to be down there in the trenches doing it. And it just, there's so many different variables, Jordan, that you don't think about. You get to the rodeo, you rope some, you know, shit calves, and you want to blame the stock contractor, when at the end of the day, it probably wasn't the stock contractor that you thought it was that brought the calves. He probably got subbed out, and the rodeo committee probably told him, hey, don't bring nothing that's less than 260 or going to get sick. And then, you know, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. And you know, there's all kind of policies that we got to go by with the no time jerk down if they want to get in and have the no time jerk down, and a lot of things they have to go by. And I mean, I was on my phone a lot on my teams, but I mean, Taylor can vouch for this. I am on the phone so much now. It's very, very much an underpaid position. And it's really not a one-man job, but we're getting through it. And as long as we can get next week, the end of the year, I'll be happy.
I know one day Taylor told me you had like 150 missed phone calls. I was like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, we I think it was actually during like right before Reno, leading up to Reno, and no time jerk down, and that's what it was. And it was Cody callbacks for come up that day, and they were wrong. And before we counted, we were actually headed to the Astros game to watch Alex play, and I had counted 174 calls before like 2:30, not missed calls, but just people from about 8 to 2:30, and I was just like overwhelmed. I mean,
Yeah,
completely.
I'm shutting
But
my
you know,
phone off. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much what I did when we got over there. But it's nonstop. I mean, really, it's a thankless job too. You know, it really is, because you're not going to please everybody. I mean, it's, you know how them go, and you got to take the chance. You got to either, you know, ride with your guys or side with the contractors. And it's a lot of times it's been, I'm going to stick up for my guys, because hey, I am one of those guys trying to make a living roping calves.
Right. And I think, you know, I just listening to some of the things you've worked through with the contractors, the committees, and some of those things, and, you know, visiting with Jolie, who's our breakaway roping director, it is a thankless job, but it's interesting to me, and I like to learn about stuff like that because it does pertain to our business. And, you know, we say we want to make this a career. And so I think that's something, you know, in my opinion, we really all need to invest our time in and learn. And there is so many moving parts. And just trying to be active and get involved and do our part. You know, I know that we always can't fix everything. And like you said, it's, you know, you're not going to make a lot of people happy and things like that, but just learning that side of the business has been really interesting to me. And it's so different than anything we've ever done before. I think that's pretty interesting to know.
Yeah. You know, when I first got it, I called Trent Walls. I talked to Trent quite a bit. He's been the director before, and you know, first thing when I was even going to think about running, everybody, you know, Lanham, he was a director before Trent was, and they just said don't do it. And I did not listen to him or not believe him, but I was like, we got to have some kind of change. So I did it. And then when I got the job, Trent said, look, learn that Shane Hanchey, the roper, and Shane Hanchey, the event rep, is two different people. And you don't need nobody coming up to you 5 minutes before you rope third high call at Pendleton and bitch to you about the calves that they're roping at Levant, Maine, or call you. And I think I don't know, Taylor maybe can answer this too, but I think I've handled that fairly well. I mean, I had a complete and total uproar yesterday, 30 minutes before the perf started, and I put my phone away and I handled it after I roped, and I just felt like, you know, Shane the roper is punched his time card. He's clocked in, not the event rep, and there's just so many different ways. But I do think that, like you said, I do think I've gotten better as a roper, almost just because I know more of the ins and outs. I'm not saying my attitude's got better, but I really do think that this year I've always been one that had a bad attitude when I didn't do good or when the calf was the reason I didn't win. And it makes me look out of a different lens now that there's a chance that our sport, whatever, so I really do think I've learned and I've grown as a person from just my time since April taking over. And I've had to make some tough phone calls. I've had to make some good phone calls. It's just, I don't know. I think about everything, Jordan, and I try to put it into life. Like I said, Taylor can probably answer that, but I feel like I've gotten better, all the way around, even as a roper in the arena and outside the arena.
Yeah, and I think, the little things and the little productions that I've put on just as jackpots, like you said, your perspective changes so much, and you have a new lens that you look through, and you see the situations and the challenges differently. It doesn't always benefit us as ropers, but you do understand a little bit more of where it's coming from and maybe how it was out of somebody's control to an extent. And I think that perspective is huge. And I do think, just like you said, I think for you to be able to handle that as a roper, and then as a, like you said, the two different people, so to speak, is awesome, because that's a lot, and one thing I've learned this year about roping, just as a contestant, man, it's a huge mental game. That's 90% of it. And so to be able to manage all that, I think is a pretty cool feat to have in your toolkit.
Just from my side of it, listening to Shane talk all the time, I can tell you I'm a lot less likely to complain about situations, because now I realize how much goes into it, and the phone calls and it's just, I think everybody assumes that hasn't been on the other side of it, that it's just have good calves, show up with good calves, let them be even, and it's never that easy, so I know I try to complain less, just because of what I hear Shane deal with all the time.
Right. Well, and just like from the 3-star, we have 200 fresh calves. Well, I take it back. We have to have 250 fresh calves because we have the breakaway and the tie down. Our stock contractors buy 500 head of cattle to get the 250. And that overhead is enormous. And so I can't even imagine these stock contractors, all year long, calves on the road, things like that. I do think that there's things we can work on as contestants and stock contractors together, but it just, there's so many things that come into play, and so much money and so much overhead and feed and all the things, travel, fuel. It's a lot as on that side of it, that I think maybe some of us don't really understand until you've lived it, like you said.
It's a lot. It really is. Rodeo and jackpots, everything. It's a lot more than everybody assumes.
Yeah, for sure. So Taylor, let's visit a little bit. I think you and Jane and I were all the same age, except for I'm sure you guys are older than me, but we've all kind of grown up together. And so when I first kind of got down to Texas, you were like a roping breakaway superstar. I mean, you were kicking butt, taking names. And then all of a sudden you're at the NFR in the barrel race. And so I think maybe a lot of people know you, maybe they didn't know you so much from breakaway roping. They're like, oh, she was a barrel racer, now she breakaway ropes. Well, no, you were a breakaway roper, a barrel racer, now you're breakaway and barrel. So tell me a little bit about your journey in that, and kind of, you know, where you started, and you know, making it to the finals, and kind of where that's taking you to this point in time.
It's funny because I feel like people associate Taylor Jacob with barrel racing, and now that my last name has changed and I'm Taylor Hanchey, they're like, oh, she's a breakaway roper, and I'm like, okay, I'm both, sort of, you know. And honestly, there's been people, when they call my name as Taylor Hanchey, don't like, even announcers don't realize that I've made the finals in the barrel racing, you know.
Right.
So really, I would say I was a breakaway roper long before I was a barrel racer. I used to say I happened to have a really good barrel horse, and so at that point in time, there really wasn't anywhere to go in the breakaway as far as after the amateur rodeos, and I had a pretty darn good horse. And so really the first year I rodeoed as a barrel racer, I had one barrel horse and I had my breakaway horse with me just to keep my barrel horse company. I wish, you know, it would have been now and I could be doing both events competitively, but so I was a barrel racer, and I eventually sold my breakaway horse and have fully invested into the barrel racing world. I have barrel horses and barrel babies, and I've got horses everywhere. And I just kind of put breakaway roping on the back burner just because I was winning in the barrel racing. And then when Bo passed away, I just kind of took a step back from everything for a while. And then I can't even tell you why, because really I probably started roping this year again in like January, like being semi-serious about it, because I won't even say I was super serious at that point. I don't know why I didn't before. I'm not sure. I think a lot of it had to do with I didn't really have a horse that I loved, and Shane was doing it all the time, and I was just like, that's kind of his deal, you know, and I'm gonna let him have his deal, and then I'm gonna do my own. But eventually he got a horse that I kind of claimed, and I started roping more seriously and really kind of trying to get better and be competitive at it. You know, I was just kind of doing it haphazardly when we had time before. But I didn't have a great barrel horse at the time, and I missed being competitive, you know, having something that I was, you know, not that I was great at it at first at all, but something that I woke up and tried to get better at every day, you know, and had the highs and the lows. That, you know, that's really probably what I missed was the high of winning. I didn't miss losing, but that's part of it, you know. And so this January when Shane got that horse, and I just kind of started getting serious about it, and so I just kind of started dabbling in it a little bit here and there. And then I decided if I was going to do it, I might as well do it all the way, because being half in, half out doesn't get anybody anywhere. So I'm not saying I've given up on barrel racing by any means, because I have a horse that a young horse that I raised and trained and did everything on, that's starting to come on pretty darn good, that I'm really excited about. But my end goal in the future is to be able to go to the pro rodeos and be able to rope and run barrels and be competitive at both of them. I have no desire whatsoever to go to any rodeo and to just get my name called. So that's why I haven't entered the barrel racing at the pro rodeos yet, just because I know my young horse isn't quite at that level yet. But yeah, I'm you know, it's fun, and it's frustrating, but I do love it.
Well, that's one thing, like you were talking, you wanted to be a competitor again, I think is a misconception. You know, people see you and they're like, oh, look at, she's so sweet and nice. Yeah, right. You were like the most fierce, competitive girl that I know. You just act nice, you know, on top. But that's one thing like inspires me to be around you and be your friend and everything, is you are a competitor and you want to win and you want to work hard. And that's something I mean, I've known you and I've seen you, especially this year, you're knocking them out. And you had a great last few weeks and kicked some butt, and you're right back up there now. And so that's really cool to see that you took that much time off and then you came back and you're working at it every day, and you're doing it, and you're devoting all your time to it. And, like you said, I know you have a good little horse coming up. Maybe you can do both, if we can get on the same page with our entering and stuff. But tell me a little bit about your competitive mindset, on maybe what you learned and what you have carried over from making it to the NFR twice, winning. I think you won 6 go rounds. That mental edge, like, how have you carried that over and into the breakaway or anything that you've done competitive wise?
It's funny because Shane and I laugh about me as a barrel racer, and it was because of my horse. I knew I was going to hit barrels, but I also knew I was going to win first, and it was like a feast or famine, and in the breakaway, I'm normally not as aggressive as I was in the barrel racing, and Shane tells me all the time, like, you need to get that attitude, you need to go out there and be more aggressive. So that's definitely something that I've been working on. But really, I think mentally, because I do think I have a little bit of an advantage because I've been out there, and not advantage roping, but just knowing where I'm going, where I can stop, where I could even rope, really, because Shane's going to help me find somewhere to rope if I need to rope, or, just the things that not necessarily in the arena that do I think I have an advantage, but just getting to the places or entering and stuff like that. I do think that matters, because I'm not stressed about where I'm going to stay, because I know I can stay in Rawlins, Wyoming, and their fairgrounds is always open, Then the other thing is probably just knowing that I've tried really hard this year to know that I'm not going to win every time. And I, as much as I expect to win every time, it's not going to happen, I try to remind myself that, because I do get mad when I don't win. But really that's part of it. As bad as that sounds. And then I don't know. I mean, I try to stay mentally prepared to win it all the time. But the other thing I think is, sometimes you're not going to win, but you need to be ready to win the next time. Don't let the run before or the 2 runs before cost you from winning when you do draw good, and don't let 2 runs before cost you when you have a chance.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. We've run a lot of calves this summer, and you might be on the wrong end of them, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And that's bang your head up against the wall, frustrating. But then, like you said, if you're not ready and you do draw the loper, then you're going to be really mad because you did have a chance, and it didn't, you didn't capitalize on it the best that you could have in that situation. And so that's one thing I agree with you 100%. And I think everybody's had to learn that, because there are so many highs and lows day in and day out that you've really got to be mentally on your game and be surrounded by people that are going to, hold you accountable to stay there too.
Yeah, I hate excuses, and I hate to blame, what you draw, but realistically, I mean, sometimes you just don't have a chance, and I don't say that as an excuse, but just sometimes you just don't draw one that's going to be able to help you win, and so that's another part that's humbling, just, because guess what? You still paid your fees and you still drove 12 hours to run a piece of crap, and so it doesn't
it's fun, isn't it?
It doesn't help the sting of it at all, but I think sometimes you just have to go, yeah, that really wasn't a chance, and go on to the next one.
Right. Shane, I want to ask you this question. I wanted to ask you for a while. We talked about y'all having the podcast and stuff. So when you won the American, you made this statement and you said, I believe I'm the best roper here. And I don't remember exactly, I don't quote you, but that stuck with me, because this year has been such a humbling experience for just myself as a breakaway roper. But the mental part of it has been something that has been the biggest learning curve. So, with everything you've done, I know you guys said this is the 12th consecutive year you've made the national finals. You've won the average twice. You've won the world. What advice can you give that has mentally kept you going, made you stronger, against the odds, so to speak, of you weren't the protege, 250-pound calf roper, whatever. Tell us a little bit about, how you fight that fight and what your mindset's like.
Yeah, I took some pretty good heat for that interview after the American, and not like I should have, because we're not like a pro sports team, and we don't have a media obligations or nothing like that. But just for my friends, because I just might have sounded like I was cocky, but I had just come from across the street and won the average at the national finals at Globe Life Field, and I won the American, and I just wanted to let people know that if you don't have any confidence in this sport, and I even said it, that it's goes from bareback riding to bronc riding to bull riding, that you're not gonna. The one thing that's stuck with me my whole life is when I'm confident, when I know that either I put the work in and I know it's going to come, or during the summer when I haven't been practicing, but I feel good, I'm sharp, I'm mentally focused. It's hard to lose when you're mentally ready to play and ready to go. And I've watched guys all through different types of pro sports, and it comes down to the same thing. When they're confident, they believe they can do anything, and that's kind of where I'm at as a roper right now. It's crazy because you listed that I won the world and won the average in 2013. I go back and I watch that DVD. It was a good year because that's the first year Taylor made the finals and set the arena record. So I'll never forget them 10 days. But I'll just look back and I'm like, I wasn't even half the roper I am now. I just feel like I've gotten so much mature as a roper and more mentally prepared. It just goes to show you, when it's your week out there. I was running the right calves. I was making good runs. When it's your week out there, it's your week, and I just feel like right now, for the last couple years, I'm in a good place mentally. I'm married. I got everything lined out. You're gonna have bumps in the road. Unfortunately, we both lost our two good horses, but it kind of comes back to how you battle back from adversity. And for me, as a young kid roping and growing up, I knew that, like you said, I wasn't going to be the prototypical, 6'3", 220-pound, like Cody Old was when he was growing up, or Fred and them guys. But so I knew that I needed to figure out how I could stay on top of this game. And the easy answer was Riata at first. I had him growing up, and when you first met me at Shawnee with my lace-up boots, I was riding Riata. And so, and to me, I just had a guy, a horse right there that I knew that if I took advantage of, I could, maybe make the national finals and kind of see where it went. But having him just blossomed me into, being a more complete roper, and, transitioned me into having Cy and Bam. And, I rode so many great horses, but I just feel like it all come from knowing that I needed to capitalize on when I got Riata. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. I never really told myself I was going to make the NFR 12 times. I just kind of got caught in the middle of it. And, one turned into two, and two into four. And really, to be honest with you, I'm just kind of going with the flow. And right now it's been great.
Well, since you opened the door for that story, now I'm going to have to tell it. So when we were like 18 at Shawnee, I was easing back to the
18. We were like
stalls.
16. It was like six. I was 16. I remember.
Well, then
Because
I
that
was
was
probably
when
14 because you're older than me,
I,
right?
I, I hung. I remember this so vividly because it was like 2 weeks before Shawnee. I had this like 6-year-old that I was so proud of that my brother had trained, and I was practicing on him. And I hung my stirrup getting off, and I thought I broke my ankle, honestly. And Taylor will tell you that I'm so dramatic, but I tore like all the ligaments outside of my ankle, and it was the one I had broken 2 years before. And so I went and bought me some lace up boots at Selmart, and we headed to Shawnee, and yeah, that's the backstory to the reasons I had the lace up. So I wasn't that
Yeah,
dorky.
good cover up. You just liked them. They were like in style. They even had like a little, silver tip on them, I'm sure. But no, he was sitting in his trailer on his rope can. I walked by and this like 125-pound kid soaking wet, putting on these lace up boots. And I'm like, who wears lace ups? I mean, that's not even cool. And so that's the first time I ever met Shane. And we were talking earlier, I told him, I said, I won't ever forget that. But
Pretty funny. Who would have thought?
who would have thought where we came from? We're really getting old. But one of the things I think you touched on is really good. And I think, where we're at as elite competitors, when you battle back from adversity, that's one thing. Like, there's so much adversity, but it's how you either get up and you fight or you don't. And I think, just like you said, you look back and you're not even the same roper. And that's one thing Raymond has told me the whole time. Your mind gets sharper. You go through, you get more mature, and then do it while you can, because eventually your body won't allow you to do what your mind says you can do. But I think that that's pretty neat to be at the place that you're at, that Taylor's at, that we're at, that we're getting this opportunity, and we have worked, we've put in the work, and mentally, you feel like you've matured a lot. And I guess it's just kind of cool to look back and reflect on some of that stuff, and where you've been, and then prove to yourself, like, hey, this is where I'm at, and who knows what the future holds too.
Yeah, me and Taylor could fill your whole podcast up telling y'all about our stories with the two horses that we lost. And for me, having Riata, and then hearing people say, oh, he's not going to win without that horse, he'll just make it a few times, and yada yada. And that motivates you, of course. But then transitioning from Riata to Bam, and then it was so crazy how similar Bam was to Riata. It was almost freaky, just the little things. He's scared of drains. Riata was terrified of drains. Just he didn't like concrete. Riata didn't like concrete. And then in the field, it really felt like I was on Riata. And so losing him was probably the darkest of my days. I was good with retiring Riata. A couple of years ago, I knew that he definitely didn't owe me anything. And now we see my little niece riding him, and dang, there brings tears to my eyes just talking about it, just seeing that he's once again doing what he's always done, and that's motivate a person, a little girl's dreams to want to rope. And so I was good with retiring Riata. I really was. But when Bam got hurt after 2019, and we know I lost the world title by tenth of a second, $1,100, however you want to say it, and I just knew that 2020 was our year, and I'll never forget it. I was at the national championship game, LSU playing Clemson, and Taylor's like, text me and said, Bam's limping. He must have an abscess. It's been really wet. I said, oh yeah, that's probably all it is. Well, we doctored him for an abscess for about 2 weeks, and finally, we got him looked at, and the inevitable happened, and we had to put him down. But I remember thinking that after we did that in February, like my whole, as far as I can remember, I'd wake up want to rope, when I was a kid, 15, 16. And then of course, after you get your first gold buckle, I mean, it's so cliche, but one's not enough. And that's all you think about is how am I going to get the next one? How am I going to get the next one? And, there for a while, I didn't even care about roping. I mean, I had to go to San Antonio and I had to go to Fort Worth, and I remember just like, I'm just not, just don't want to rope, and but I think that was just one of those deals that I had to go through as a person, and I had to refocus and reshift. And once I figured out, that I did have Bam's little sister and Pam, and I could still win and make the finals. I think it's what helped made me who I am today as a person, as a roper. And that's why I feel like he's helped me so much. And not just what I was able to win on him, but even now.
Well, and I think it's so cool, just like you said, that horses make such a big difference in our business, hands down. And having the horses that you've had, that Taylor's had, and then continuing to get on different ones and have the lineage, but then, all the different aspects of it, all the different horses, it's really awesome to say you've had that many great equine athletes, and just the fact that some people don't always get that opportunity to, or maybe don't find those horses. And it's pretty cool to say you've had some of the best horses, and you still do. And just even like Bo and with Taylor and things like that. And I know Taylor's got, you've got some things, some little colts coming up. And so just the fact that we've gotten to do that, we've been a part of those horses, and they're a part of us too. They're, like you said, they're a part of where we're at and where we're going. And it's kind of neat to just know that they're a part of our journey always, and they've made us who we are.
They really have. And I wish that was something that Shane and I didn't have in common, was losing our partners. I tell people that all the time, losing the horse that you rodeo on is the only way I can compare it is to, and I know this sounds bad, but it's like losing a spouse, because not only are they're your friend, but they're your source of income as well. When your good horse that you make a living on goes down, you miss your companion, but then you also have that moment of panic on, how am I going to make this work? So it was something that I struggled with, and Shane helped me with. And then I knew where he was mentally after we had to put Bam down. So I just kind of let it ride, for lack of better words, just because I figured it would just take some time, and that's something that I am proud of Shane for, because after Bo died with me, I took a little break. I mean, I didn't have anything that was ready, but Shane had no choice but to kind of keep going, because it was right in the middle of the winter rodeos, and he went to the rodeos and did okay, not great, but I mean, a lot of people would have crumbled, and he just kind of, stayed where he was, and then got better after that. So, yeah, it's something that we've both gone through that has made us, honestly, it's made us closer to one another too. So it's part of life, though.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about you two as a couple, because I think that everybody sees you as like a very professional rodeo, business couple, but those of us behind the scenes know that that's not always the case. You actually do have fun, and you actually are human. So tell me something about you guys as a couple that maybe people don't know and they don't see.
Something that somebody said about us that I was like, what? That's probably pretty true. I think we can both be pretty hard-headed, and we both have a alpha attitude at times. I've learned, and so has Shane, when it's time to back down and let that person be the alpha and just go, yep, you're right, yeah, and just let it go. What we do for fun, before we got married, we did some like premarital counseling, and one of the questions she asked was, what do y'all do for fun? And we both just kind of looked at each other like, good question. We rope, but and roping is fun, but it's also our, Shane's job and what I try to make my job as well, so I don't know if roping really qualifies. We do that a lot, and it is fun when you win, so that's something we do for fun. The other thing is Shane's a sports fanatic. I'm a sports fan casually, I guess you could barely say. So we do make it a point to go to sporting events, more so for Shane than me, but he has taken me to some really, really good games that are very exciting. So I go along for the ride for that too.
Yeah, Jordan. So probably the greatest World Series game, probably arguably of all time, she was in attendance for, and the only college football game to ever go 7 overtime, she was in attendance for. And they literally changed the rule after that game because it took so long that she and it was her alma mater, Texas A&M, that got the late night victory against LSU. So she don't think she wasn't happy about that outcome either.
Oh, I'm certain of it. That's what I'm saying. People think she's this sweet little dove, but she's just a hint competitive. I mean, just a little bit.
Oh yeah, they have if they think she's sweet, they haven't talked to her enough.
What's crazy to me is this year somebody told me that I was intimidating, and I was like, this is shocking. This is absolutely crazy to me, because I think I am like nice and I try to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that people still think I'm intimidating after that, I'm just like, holy moly, if they only knew, because that's me being nice,
Well, you do have a resting face that's just a smidge intimidating. I mean, I won't go any further into it.
I'm going to work on it. It's probably making me age, trying not to have that normal face, but I'm going to just like walk around with maybe I need to get Botox or something that makes me have a smile on my face at all times. I don't know.
Oh gosh, that's funny. Oh man. So one thing that's coming up with you guys is you have your Shane Hanchey Invitational roping in October. You're gonna have Breakaway this year. I think you did last year as well. Tell me a little bit about it, what goes into it. And I know you said it's 100% payback, $1,000 fees in the Breakaway. Man, that's amazing to rope for that much money and 100% payback. So tell me a little bit about it and what we can look forward to as contestants.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't have Breakaway last year. I've had it back, and I wanted to add at least 5,000 and rope for $1,000, partly because of what y'all did at Spice Your Grip. When I seen that, you had over 100 girls there for 2 and a short and $1,000 fees, and I thought, man, that's awesome. And so, my format, or our format for the Breakaway, is 3 and a short, and for $1,000 fees, 100% payback, and we're gonna rope walking fresh ones, and it's gonna be 2 foot under at Giddings in the covered arena. And so I just think that I've always my payoff has always been 100% payback. Every year I've had Breakaway every year, up until now that I've had the tie down. So I just feel like we do all the work behind the scenes to get the money and pay for stock charge and pay for our help and stuff like that. That I want the ropers to rope for everything they put in the pot. I feel like that's my obligation as a roper and as a producer is to, whatever you put in, you get to rope for. And so, I'm really curious to see how many girls show up and how much somebody is going to win, because arguably I have the best tie down roping in the world, and that's because they get to rope for all their money, and it's not just one guy winning 15,000. Every year we have 4 or 5 guys that win more than 10,000, and that's my goal is I want guys to be able to come there, have a good time. We've got Turbo playing the music, we've got Don cooking Cajun food. I mean, we try to have a good time, and it'll be 2 days this year, so I really expect it to be a really good time. And so that's just kind of how we've been. And I transitioned it from Sulphur to Giddings when I moved, and it's a lot better location for my ropers. People love going to Louisiana, but but we're bringing a little bit of Louisiana to getting. So that's just kind of where we're at. I mean, Taylor maybe can add on to it, but it's a lot of work for me and Taylor, and we don't get paid unless we win, and it's worth it for us at the end of the day.
He says it's worth it, but every year after we get done, he's like, I'm never doing this again. And I'm like, okay. And then what do you know? About halfway through the year, he's like, we need to start working on the rope. And I'm like, wait. You said we weren't going to do it. And then he somehow, I don't ever get talked into it. I get drug into it. Then we start planning it for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the director job. It's a thankless job putting on the rope in, but at the end of the day, when you got the guys that are coming to rope in front of, your family and your friends and your community, and doing it for a reason, I think we're going to keep doing it, I think.
Somebody asked the other day, they're like, well, what do you make on the rope? And we're like, nothing. We usually, because Shane's adding machine in his head doesn't always add things up right, we usually lose money unless he wins, and they were like, I cannot believe you do that. And Shane's like, well, I just want people to, have a chance to win a lot of money. And I think that speaks to who Shane is as a person, that he wants people to win and give people an opportunity to win. And it is a hard job and it is a long weekend, but it is fun and it is great watching. And so I do enjoy it at the end of it.
I'm the same way though. After the 3-star and the Spicer grip, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. I don't want to even do breakaway roping. So, and then every year I'm like, oh, what are we going to do? So I'm the same way, I have to admit. And no pressure though, Shane. I mean, if you don't win, it's not going to be good, but no pressure. I mean, step up.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'm riding my good horse.
I hope he's not referring to Pam, because I will be riding her. So
I am referring.
I asked Taylor if in the vows, if she had to mention, the fact that like what's hers is hers and what's yours is hers as well. Because I think that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an unwritten rule in marriage, from what I've heard and gathered.
Happy wife is a happy breakaway roper.
Somebody asked me why I got to ride Pam, and I said, man, I honestly think that Shane just realized that when I win, it's a lot easier on our relationship as a whole. So he said, yeah, you can have her. Go ahead.
He said, yes, you will be riding her everywhere. Oh my gosh. Well, guys, I'm coming down there. I'm looking forward to it. Excited about it. And just to get to be a part of other people's stuff. And, it does, especially this year, we've seen every little bit counts. So being able to rope for that kind of money, those calves, as a breakaway roper, I don't know how, if you have a free weekend or make time to go down there. I mean, you can't hardly miss it, for that kind of money. And especially the food. I mean, like you said, you're bringing a little bit of Louisiana to Texas. So I think it'll be a fun time, and I'm excited to come down there.
Yeah, thank you. We're looking forward to it. Yeah, we'll have some jambalaya or pastelaya, and our community coffee people's coming, and they're gonna have all kind of stuff for us. So we'll be it'll be a good time.
We'll have
as long as you have coffee. I'll be there. Yeah, count me in.
Yeah,
you know me so well.
Yeah, that's another thing that Shane and I do on the side, kind of, is we have a Cajun food trailer during crawfish season. So I don't know if you consider that something that we do for fun. It is definitely not fun. And it is definitely a test on our relationship, working in a very hot 8x16 trailer. But we do that during, like, usually it's March to the end of June.
Yeah, it's only hot in there because Taylor will not turn the AC on because she's scared we're going to trip the 50 amp breaker that her dad got installed. And I've never seen nothing trip a 50 amp breaker.
Well, you might not say that. It might happen.
Yeah, it might happen, and he forgets that we have to run a generator sometimes, and that definitely will trip. And you know what? Sometimes you just gotta sweat to make money. And really working that hard and sweating that much will make you rope a heck of a lot better.
I'm gonna say you want. I know I've done some stuff like this fall and this winter. I'm like, if this doesn't make you want to go out there and rope, nothing will.
Oh, it annoys me that Shane's like, I can make $3,000 in 9 seconds, and we worked 3 days and 2 nights to make that. And I'm like, yes, that is not realistic. Just so you know, that no job in the world pays that well. But I get it. Yes, it does. Compared to roping, this is much worse.
The things we do to fuel our passion.
Right. I'm glad we do it, because it does take a little pressure off of just having to win. But it's that was one of Shane's crazy ideas he comes up with every once in a while, and again drags me to it. So luckily it has been successful. So it's worth it.
Drags you into it. Sounds really mean.
But it's true. So this is a funny story. I the first 2 years we did it, we would have fried shrimp on the menu, and it is great. I will say it is great, but it gets so hot in the trailer that here I am with my, trying to look semi cute. So I have these like hoop earrings in, and I'm back there just frying my shrimp, just being the fry master I am. And all of a sudden something starts burning my neck. It's my earrings. My earrings are so hot that when it touches my neck, it burns my neck. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is it for me. This is where I'm gonna have to draw the line. And so now we don't have fried shrimp. But I also
it's a fashion violation when your earrings are too hot to wear. Fashion violation.
Yes.
I can only imagine what Shane is doing right now.
No, it's yeah. I mean, it's always something when it comes to the food trailer. I have no comment because I have drug her into quite a few things, but I wouldn't say they've all been bust. I mean, if they were bust, I think I would admit it. I don't think they've been bust.
This is me letting him be the alpha and just keeping my mouth shut right now.
This is marriage 101 for anybody who wants to know. This is what you do.
Yeah,
she will be on Pam this week, FYI. So this is what you do.
That's what I told somebody the other day. I said, you know what? I really need to find my own horse. I said, because I really have to act right to ride Shane all the time. And they looked at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, but for real, like I mean, I have to like, hey babe, I
be
love
nice
you.
and everything.
Yeah. So we're working on that.
Oh, that's too funny. All right, guys. So I have one more question for both of you. I ask everybody on my podcast this question. If you could go back and you could tell your younger self something, what would it be and why?
Yes. So I was warned that this question was going to be asked. So I had to do some research, some mental research. I would say enjoy the ride. I would tell my younger self. I started homeschooling my junior year because when I got RIATA, I thought, oh man, this is it. I gotta focus on roping. So me and Tuff, it was so funny. I told my parents that Tuff's parents said that he was going to homeschool. Tuff told his parents that my parents said that I could homeschool. So we got that done, and so we started homeschooling at the same time. And I just, at the end of the day, like, what would it have hurt if I'd have stayed and played baseball or walked with my class my senior year and enjoyed the little things. And I kind of look back and kind of almost not regret it, but because I mean it's hard to say regret it because it's quote unquote worked out for me thus far, but just kind of would like to have done things a little different, and that would have been enjoying the ride and just doing things not off the beaten path, so to say.
I think that's good because, we do get I think it's easy to get caught up in where we want to go and we're just tunnel vision, at a young age, especially now with so many opportunities that are coming up. And so I would say the same thing. You're only going to get to do some of that stuff for so long. So you might as well, do it and experience it, and then you move forward from there. That's good.
Yeah, I would agree with Shane too. There's a lot of times that I think just because when I was barrel racing, I started doing good and I was on a roll, and I think I almost naively thought like, oh, I'm gonna win another round tomorrow, or I'll win Fort Worth again. Like it wasn't a big deal, and I think I know I wish I would have just kind of savored that moment a little bit more instead of being like, okay, cool, now let's go to another one. I agree with Shane on that one, but really I think what I would tell my younger self is just to keep going, and that hard work pays off. And you're not going to see it immediately ever, probably, and sometimes you do, but that just makes it, you want to try even harder. And I think just to keep going no matter what, that there's going to be setbacks, but that what other choice do you have? That's what I think. You can either give up and be defeated, or you can keep going and get better. And so I think I would just tell myself to just keep going.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's just kind of like we talked earlier, it's how you get up from the adversity and keep going and keep pushing. And yeah, I think that's both very good advice for everybody. And I love to hear things like that because it gives us new perspectives on, we're always learning and adding to our arsenal. So I think that's really good.
For sure. The other thing that somebody told me a while back was that, God isn't going to do something for you that you can do yourself. And I don't know why it stuck out to me. I think because so many times you're like, well, why, why this or why that? I just think that there is a bigger plan, and God has a plan, but he's also not going to make things happen for you because you're sitting on the couch, like you don't get anywhere doing that. You've got to do things for yourself at some point too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, he's given us a lot of gifts and opportunities, and we've got to step through those doors and move forward and do our part as well. So yeah, you nailed it, girl. Well, y'all, this has been awesome. It's fun talk. I know we could probably sit here and visit all night, but is there anything that you guys would like to touch on or say that you didn't get to say?
No, I think for me, I think we kind of hit it on the head. I think Breakaway Open is growing and moving, and if we just all do our part to try to make it better, I think it's going to get, eventually where y'all girls want it to get. And so, with that being said, I'm going to try to have a great Breakaway Open. We are here in the next, couple weeks, and hopefully it can grow into something big and see where it goes from there.
Yep. What Shane said.
That's you letting him be the alpha again.
Also him being the talker and me just kind of being in the background. That's for sure. He likes to talk to people, and I just rather not. So
I wouldn't say I like to talk to people. I would say that I'm willing to talk to people.
That's a good willing. Sometimes she's not willing. I want you guys all to know that I had to threaten her to talk on this tonight because she wasn't going to. Okay. Guys, I've really enjoyed it, and I am excited about coming to your roping, and good job at Pendleton. We are headed to Salinas, so we'll see you guys over there, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We appreciate it. Or I appreciate it. I don't know about Taylor, probably don't, but I appreciate it.
I guess I do. The other thing that I think is interesting about us together, is that I think a lot of people assume that we rodeo together, or like we're married, so we get to go places together, and that's definitely not the case. I've said more times this year than I want to admit that it's silly that we're both out there trying to rodeo, but we're in 2 different rigs. We're each paying for fuel. We're doing all the things that we're doing, but separately, and that's not to sound ungrateful that I have somebody that does it with me. It's just, it stinks that we're out there, but separate, and I hope at some point that the PRCA and WPRA get on board with letting us be able to buddy either with our husbands or even just cross event buddying, as far as when I'm ready to enter the barrels, and would like to try to do both. And maybe that's why we get along, is because we're not together all the time. But I would like to try it.
Yeah, and I think that that's something, for everybody. That's one of the biggest things we've heard all year is definitely, I think, even held some people back, because if they didn't have to do it separately with separate money, separate rigs, there would be more entries probably in both events. And so, plus I know there's a lot of barrel racers and breakaway ropers that do both, that can't always make the slacks work. And so, I'm excited to see how our associations come together to make that a possibility for us as contestants.
Yes, and I'm with you. I think more people would do it if that was an option. I can tell you that my cheap self refuses to buy 2 living quarters trailers, and so I've been rodeoing out of a stock trailer for a month now. And luckily, I've ran into Shane a time or 2 and bummed a shower. That's pretty important. And so I've either done that or I've gotten a hotel. But it's just financially, it's like mind-boggling how much we're spending out there, and that's something that I'm very cheap by nature, and I try to make Shane that way as much as I can, but he told me this summer before I left, he said, look, like, you're gonna spend money, but worrying about money and panicked about how you're going to pay for this isn't going to help you rope any better. So, just know that you're going to spend money and get over it, basically, because it's not helping stressing about it. And I do agree. And I have tried to, get over it. I am one to get on my Gas Buddy app and try to find the cheapest fuel around, but I am getting better.
Girl, me too. Don't you worry. We went on a few road trails because I'm like, oh, yep, it's $2.97 over here. We are going over here.
Shane says, what's 10 cents? I'm like, well,
it's a lot, actually.
Yes. When you get 90 gallons or 100 gallons, 10 cents adds up. That's a whole meal, a nice, very nice meal. So
I don't know where we were, but it was like $3.30, and then the next place it was like $3.90, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. And Raymond's like, really? You're that excited? I'm like, it's only $3.30 here. Like, woohoo, yeah. So I feel you. I'm the same way.
Unfortunately, I've ran out of diesel, trying to get to the cheaper diesel. So now I have a 5-gallon tank on the back of the truck just in case that happens again. But that's where Shane tells me I take it too far. And so he's probably right.
Well, sometimes you just got to do what a girl's got to do.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, man. Well, guys, I really enjoyed it. And I appreciate you taking the time. And we'll see you in October.
Sounds good.
Thank you.